After uploading part 1 of my Saudi series about my travels to Jeddah, Jizan province and the Abha area, I've decided to upload part 2, where I travel to Riyadh, the edge of the world, the Wahbah Crater, the Taif mountains and Tabuk province in the far north of the country. This part of my trip took me to some of the most beautiful places I've been to in my life, and to landscapes that many would not imagine exist in Saudi Arabia, Saudis included. I travelled around the country with my German travel buddy, Felix, where we got around using long-distance buses, hiring cars and hitchhiking.
So today is my first day in Riyadh, and luckily we managed to sign up to this internations trip to this place called the Edge of the World, or also known in Arabic as Jebel Tawfiq. This place is phenomenal. I didn't really expect such beautiful views, but it's mind-blowing. It's just taken me aback since getting here, really. In fact, this is the views here are some of the best I've ever seen.
Being in this wonderful place felt like a fairy tale. The colours, the plains, and the dramatic cliff edges just made me feel as if I was in another world. We arrived at this place about 1 hour before sunset, making the lighting perfect. The view from this cliff edge has got to be one of the most dramatic and beautiful views I've ever seen in my life. Despite being so close to Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh, only a handful of the city's 5 million residents have ever been here, and many of the people I met in Riyadh had not even heard of it. After arriving in Riyadh, we spent a few days exploring what the city has to offer. I was especially impressed by the National Museum, which was home to an impressive amount of ancient artifacts and old inscriptions. Nearby the National Museum is the Musmak Fortress, a fortress built in the 1800s, which played a major role in the capture of Riyadh by Abdulaziz Al Saud, the founder of Saudi Arabia. On a more negative note, Riyadh's place of capital punishment is right outside, on a large square which felt quite eerie during my visit. During my time in Riyadh, we also visited a falcon festival, the Wadi Namar waterfall and Tahliya Street, which was home to some of Riyadh's most fancy cars. The highlight of my time in Riyadh, however, was visiting the Kingdom Tower, which is one of the city's major landmarks. We went up to the sky bridge on top of this skyscraper to admire the staggering views of the metropolis below. After leaving Riyadh, we headed to the awe-inspiring Wahbah Crater on a camping trip organised by the couchsurfing community in Jeddah. We travelled there with one of our couchsurfing hosts, Mahmoud, who was one of the funniest people to be around. He was also great company, and so were the other people we met on our trip. After waking up the following morning for sunrise, I sat contemplating the view for a while before the others woke up. We then hiked up to the highest point, allowing us to see this stunning view. Following that, we hiked down into the crater and onto the salt plain before returning back up. That day, we spent at least 6 hours hiking.
If you look over here, you can actually see where previous lava flows were. This black line there just demonstrates that.
And guys, don't share the video. If you like the video, do share, comment and subscribe.
The following day, we travelled with Mahmoud to the mountains surrounding the city of Taif. These beautiful views are in an area called Shifa, where we spent another day hiking and exploring. We then stumbled across this animal auction on our way to Jeddah. This was our second time in Jeddah, but we only spent 1 night here this time. The next day, we took an overnight bus to the northern province of Tabuk, which ended up being one of the highlights of my entire trip. After spending a day exploring the city of Tabuk, we ended up hiring a car and making our way to Wadi Al Disah, which, in my opinion, was the most beautiful place we visited in the entire trip. This green wadi was like an oasis in an otherwise dry landscape. It was filled with palm trees, farms, and gorgeous views. What really struck me about the landscape, though, was the ever-present red rock. The red colour of the rock was unlike anywhere else I'd been in the Middle East. After spending a night in the car in Wadi Al Disah, we headed to the coast at the Gulf of Aqaba and visited an abandoned seaplane wreckage.
So we went to this abandoned wreckage of a plane which for some reason crashed on a beach, and we wanted to spend the night just outside. However, like an army patrol stopped us and said that we're not allowed to spend the night there, and currently they're escorting us. We're literally following their car right now to somewhere where we can spend the night.
This seaplane wreckage is a Catalina seaplane from the 1930s, which originally belonged to the American military. It was later bought by an American businessman, Thomas Kendall, who decided to take his family on a leisure trip around the world with it in the 1960s. However, after landing in the Gulf of Aqaba, Saudi Bedouins thought the family to be Israeli commandos. Thus, they were captured, taken to Jeddah for questioning, and were eventually released. However, the plane never went anywhere. My final full day in Saudi Arabia was spent visiting places in the northwest of Tabuk province, such as Mughair, Shoaib and Haql city, right on the Jordanian border. The Mughair Shoaib ruins were certainly the highlight of the day. These ruins supposedly date back to the 2nd millennium BC, and the Holy Quran mentions that both Prophet Moses and Prophet Shoaib had been there. Following our visit to Mughair Shoaib, we went to Haql city, which had a beautiful park and coastline. Whilst I was in Haql, there was a hailstorm which caused flooding and a landslide on the border road. This unfortunately delayed our trip by a few hours.
In the distance over there we can see Egypt, so we're only 14 kilometers away from the Jordanian border along this coast. However, on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba is Egypt, and you can see the mountains of the Sinai Peninsula there. So I'm currently in Haql, which is in Saudi Arabia, and it's roughly, I think, 30 kilometers من حدود الأردن صح؟ لا 14 kilo. Okay, it's only 14 kilometers away from the Jordanian border. And I've met this really friendly guy called Mansour, who is driving to Amman today, and he's going to take me with him. So yeah, super excited for that and looking forward to the cold weather. شكرا كثير منصور.
حياك الله. عفوا.
Thanks for watching, guys. My next video will be about my trip to Iraq, which includes my visit to the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, Al-Najaf city, Al-Hilla, Al-Kufa and Babylon. So be sure to subscribe.